Hi, and welcome to Decoding AQ, helping you to learn the tools, mindsets, and actions to thrive in an ever-changing world. Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Decoding AQ. I have with me today Judith W Umlas. She is the Senior Vice President of the International Institute for Learning, where, without giving away her age, she's been there for 3 decades nearly. An amazing author. She's written numerous books, including The Power of Acknowledgement and Grateful Leadership, which we're going to dive into a little bit today. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Ross. It's really a pleasure to be here.
I've been looking forward to today, and why don't you share just a little bit of your story, because from a writing background, some time in TV, and then at the International Institute for Learning for a long time. Just give us a little bit of a roadmap of some of the highlights to give us a bit of context.
Well, I have to give you my game-changing incident, even though it's kind of off the beaten path. I was working for a major television network in New York as a producer and writer, and at that time I was pregnant. I was a pregnant businesswoman, and in those days, this is going back a few years into the 1980s.
Into the 80s. I love the
Yes.
80s music. It's one of my favorite genres for music. Yeah.
Good. Well, I think that's great. You've been there, done that. But this culture, this television culture was, exciting and thrilling, and I was loving every minute of my job there. I'd been there already about 10 years, and of course, I wanted to keep working until my baby was born. Like, my due date was my plan. But when I first announced it to my colleagues that I was pregnant, suddenly everything changed. Everything from, really, please sit down, or can we help you? When are you leaving? When are you leaving the company? Like, not when are you coming back, when are you leaving? And then as things progressed, I had people say things like, did you swallow a basketball, or reach out and like rub my tummy in the elevator? And I got so mad one day that I sat down and I wrote. And I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And I wrote an article called How Not to Talk to a Pregnant Businesswoman. And I figured I got it, it was for me. I was venting.
Yeah.
But then I submitted it, and Working Woman magazine bought it. It was their feature story of the month. And suddenly I find myself on Good Morning America talking
Wow. Yeah.
rules for how not to talk to a pregnant businesswoman. And that was life-altering, that experience, because for years afterwards, people found me and said, this article changed my entire working situation. I made copies of it and I put it on all my colleagues' desks, and they stopped treating me like I was different and special, and they just, became much more, the way things always were.
Yep.
So that was my first experience with writing to change a condition that was intolerable. Okay.
Yeah. And I guess for you just said, originally it was just a way for you to vent, and it then manifested in something that caused change for you and many others, almost by accident rather than design, but it opened that door for you. Yeah.
But I think in the back of my mind, I felt the situation was so intolerable that I even thought, as I was writing, oh, maybe I'll send it off to a magazine or two. Well, I sent it out to 15 magazines, and one
picked it.
Yes. But that was career altering for me. And then I went to work for the International Institute for Learning in the early 1990s. And, it's really been an amazing experience for me to work there. And we have a visionary leader. Our CEO is E. Laverne Johnson, and she's the kind of person who makes a snap decision. And one time I said to her, I think our company could use a publishing division because our chief competitor had one. She said, go start it up. I said, no. I mean, bring in somebody. No, you can do it. You know, you're Phi Beta Kappa, you've got a degree in English, you do it. So I did it, you know, that kind of thing happened. And along the way, we published a couple of books, which was very exciting. And then one day I had an incident in a coffee shop of all places where I went to my Dunkin' Donuts coffee shop. You have those in the UK?
We do, yes. Although at the moment with, you know, coming out of lockdown, I don't think many have been going out to any of those kind of locations, but yes, we do. And I spend a lot of time in the States as well. So really,
okay, you're familiar.
With the brand. Yeah.
Yes. So I went there every day, and every day I ordered my small black, half decaf, half regular caramel coffee.
Okay. Yep.
Crazy. And so one day I got a young woman who was new, I gave her my order. And then I came back the second day and I got the same woman. I gave her my order. The third day I come and she's there and she's holding a cup when she sees me. I said, "What's that?" She said, "That's your small black, half decaf, half regular caramel coffee." And I said, "You're a genius. How did you remember that?" I mean, they have a zillion customers there. And those were the days when, you know, you really had to wait. And she just stared at me. I mean, like, no response. And then she was kind of jaw dropped, you know. And then she looked at me. I said, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And she said, "I never hear compliments. I only hear complaints." That's what she said. And those words, they burned a hole in my heart.
Yeah.
And that's when because I had noticed it all over. You know, whenever I would compliment someone, they would be shocked. It was not like, "Oh, thank you. You know, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate it." It was, you know, a state of shock. And
not normal practice.
Yeah. I mean, this was like, that's it. And the same kind of thing, the person who rubbed my belly in the elevator in CBS, the coffee lady had me
triggered it again. Have you ever read, it reminds me of a book called The Fred Factor. Have you ever read The Fred Factor?
I've heard of it, but no, I haven't.
It's all around finding extraordinary examples of customer service. So that lady that you've just described that triggered an event for you, I read it a long time ago, but I think Fred is modeled on a postman who would do incredible things, but then he would spot, or actually it's written by somebody who was inspired by their postman. I think that's it. It's coming back to me. The neurons are starting to fire. And he then, you know, actively pursued finding these Fred Factor experiences in bars, in coffee shops, in wherever it was,
fun.
to look at customer service done well, done right. So it sounds like these experiences that happen to us, we have to listen to them and we have to then respond in a way that bounces us forward. And it sounds like that was another event for you.
Oh, it was amazing. And then I went back to our CEO and I said, "I have a book that I think I need to write." And she said, "Oh, what is it?" I said, "I think it's called The Power of Acknowledgement." And she contemplated that for, I would say, 5 to 10 seconds maximum. She said, "Write it." That's all it was. And so I wrote it. It took me about a year. It was my first book. And it was very exciting because I had 1,000 stories already.
Yep.
And then I started reaching out to, and I found that there was a whole scientific background for, you know, when you acknowledge people, when you express gratitude toward them, when people do that themselves. I mean, all the hormones start flowing and chemicals get really, I mean, I realized there was a whole science behind it too. I didn't know that at first. But
you felt it, right?
I felt it. Yeah. I feel great every time I get now more often when I acknowledge someone in a heartfelt way, you know, they just melt. You know, a light comes on that was not there previously. And I've been called slightly obsessive, compulsive, and obnoxious about it, but I cannot not acknowledge somebody that deserves it, or I pay for it sincerely.
Well, we're you know, our brain is an addict. It likes certain chemicals, likes certain
Yes,
feelings.
yes.
And so, you know, giving acknowledgement and heartfelt gratitude to someone else is a two-way uplift. It uplifts you as the giver and the receiver. So why wouldn't you want to keep repeating and being obsessive about it? And your
Yeah,
brain is wired to be addicted to it. So I can imagine, you know, what
very good point.
unfold when, you know, you can't unsee that, and you can't not experience it once you've experienced it, you know? So
I
that's,
know.
yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, and then the thing that I love about this is the impact is so unpredictable. For example, I'll give you one other story. I went to check in for a flight, and I'm always borderline late, you know? I've never missed a flight, but I come this close.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I went on a long security line. It was a New York airport, and I get to the security guard, and he looks at my boarding pass. He looks at my driver's license, looks at it. He said, "This is not you," holding up my boarding pass. I said, "What do you mean it's not me?" I look at it, it's this name from another country. I never heard the name before. I said, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" He said, "Don't worry." He said, "You go to the ticket booth, you get a new ticket, you come right back in here where you left off. I'll let you right in the line. Don't worry about it. You're going to make your flight." And he smiled. He was like so kind. And I almost had a heart attack, but I went and I got the new boarding pass. I came back and he let me right in, sweet as sugar. And so I said, "Thank you so much." And I went through. I get to the other end of security and I go, "Oh dear, I didn't acknowledge that man for being as kind as he was, as customer oriented, as friendly, as non-alarmist." I mean, he could have said, "You're a terrorist, you know, go to, you know, the real security." And and he's miles behind me already in terms of the people between him and me. So I asked at the other end, I said, "That security guard was wonderful." And I said, do you have just a form that I can fill out for his manager?" That's something I love to do too.
Yep.
And they looked at me and they said, "We only have a complaint form." So
But doesn't that sum up society? You know, complaint
yes,
forms.
that's it.
Where's the gratitude forms? You know,
Right, right,
where's the
exactly.
opportunity to do that? We're not wired that way, are we?
No,
You know, as
no.
society. But I
But
guess that's
I
been
crossed
your,
it out.
yeah.
He gave me the form. I put a line through complaint and I wrote compliment. And it wasn't quite, you know, compliment is not the same as an acknowledgement. I'll tell you about that later. But I wrote just this wonderful acknowledgement of this TSA person. And I said he just couldn't have been nicer or friendlier, or, you know, all the things I shared with you. And I sent it. I said, "Here, and here's my email address. Just let me know that you got this." To his
Yeah.
manager, and I didn't even know who his manager was. I said manager, to manager of, and I had the guy's name because I saw his tag.
Yep.
Richard S. Brown, by the way. And so anyway, I sent it in, and my conscience let me go on my flight.
Yep.
You know, if I hadn't done that, I would have been tormenting myself. Yeah, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, you know.
Yep. Yep.
So anyway, about a week later, I get an email from his boss, and he said, "I have worked at LaGuardia Airport for 28 years, and I have never seen a compliment from a passenger at all, let alone anything as wonderful as yours." And he said, I'm going to be holding this TSA agent up as a model for how to deal with customers at a meeting of 200 TSA agents we're going to be having next week. And I went, oh, I mean, this goes on.
Wonderful.
More.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was thrilled. I couldn't have been happier.
Yeah.
A week later, I get an email from Richard S. Brown, and he says, I'm walking on air, because he got my name, you know, he found out how to reach me. He said, I am walking on air. I was held up as a model of how to deal with passengers at this huge meeting that we have, and I never anticipated this. And I have to sign off now because I have to go tell my 90-year-old mother. She'll be so
How wonderful. It's a snowball effect. I want to ask the question. You mentioned the difference between a compliment and an acknowledgement. Please share.
Yeah. And actually, I teach a whole module of my day-long course on the distinction between recognition and acknowledgement. And a recognition is more like a compliment. A compliment is, you know, thanks for doing a good job. You did a good job. And that's what recognition is. Thanks for getting the report in on time. You know, I really appreciated you staying late. Thank you. It was helpful to the team. What an acknowledgement is a communication that lets a person know that you know who they are as a human being. And you're acknowledging them for who they are rather than what they do. So, you know, when I acknowledged Richard Brown, it was, you know, he was such a wonderful, friendly person. He made me feel so comfortable and not like a terrorist. And, you know, he was non-alarmist. He just had so many wonderful qualities as, you know, as a human being, effectively, is what I'm saying. And so, and it always needs to be heartfelt. It's not just a surface thing. And people are afraid of that. People are afraid to do, I mean, sometimes they do it and then the person will cry, you know?
Yeah.
The recipient will cry.
And you know, this is something that you've been crafting and building momentum up of your experiences. So you've been layering up, you know, how it works, how it affects others, and observing and evolving your understanding, your approach, and then to be able to share with others. How has that both, you know, you've talked about it shaping your career, these various moments that then some have been a serendipity, some have been very intentional, and that you build them. Where else and what other, you must have worked with countless organizations to help them behave in this way. Share some stories of ones where it's really opened up a whole new world for an organization, just like it has for you. And perhaps, you know, listeners can be inspired by that activity of what happens when it's done inside companies.
Okay. Well, that's a great question. Thank you. I have about 1,000 stories I could share with you, but I'll take this one because we had someone at IIL who was determined to get me into a manufacturing company. And, you know, the message of the power of acknowledgement is seen as a little warm and fuzzy by some, but this account executive just knew I had to be in this company. It took him 2 years to get me in. But once I was in and I was doing my full day course, and that was before the second book was written, it was called, the first course I taught was Leadership and the Power of Acknowledgement, because the minute my book was published, IIL had me on the road training leaders, and it was like, oh, I've never done this before. Oh my God, yeah, what am I gonna do? They sent me to, Trinidad the first time in case I bombed. You know, it was like,
that's a wise move, you know, to do experiments when you're doing something without the capability. Mitigate risk by picking where you do it, you know. It's you know, do your low risk practice. In fact, it reminds me, sorry to interrupt, but just I was at a talk with Chris Voss, He wrote Never Split the Difference. He was the FBI hostage negotiator
Oh,
for
wow.
many, many years, one of the top ones. And I was at this in February, actually, in Phoenix. And they were giving us the training of low risk repetitions of something. So if it's, you're trying to learn something that's uncomfortable, or you're doing it, i.e., everything's in negotiation, try and do this piece, but do it in low risk scenarios. So you get your homework in. So then when it matters, i.e., in a terrorist situation, you can't split the difference. Well, just have half a hostage.
Yeah, right.
It really matters. So I guess in a similar example, okay, let's put you here and get you to, practice, learn the skills, get the capability and confidence to then scale up.
Exactly.
Smart. Yep.
Except that they had about 60 people there. And I almost went home when I saw that. I mean, it was scary, but I went through it. And then at one point I have an exercise called the Knock Your Socks Off Power of Acknowledgement exercise, where I actually have people write a letter to somebody that they have never deeply, profoundly, sincerely acknowledged in their past from their career, most often. But if they, if they really have a relative that's knocking on their door to be acknowledged, a parent or a child or somebody, they can do that. So that was the first time I'd ever done that exercise. And I gave them about 20 minutes to write a page, a letter. Dear so-and-so, you have made an incredible difference in my life because, and anyway, so they're writing. And all of a sudden I start hearing sobs from this corner and that corner and that corner. And I grabbed the organizer and because I was in a panic, I said, "What's going on here?" He said, "Oh, it's great. This is wonderful. This is a breakthrough for them." And that's what I found, that this exercise does that to people, because we all pay such a high price for not acknowledging the people who have done the most for us in our careers, in our families, in our education. I could tell you so many stories about.
I guess that links to the other side. We've talked a lot about the positive outcomes of acknowledgement, of how it uplifts, it connects emotionally, how it can change people's lives. What's the reverse? What's the cost of not acknowledging and not doing that?
Before I tell you that, can I keep you in suspense for a minute?
Sure, yeah.
You had asked me for a dramatic story about a customer.
Yes.
A company. So can I just tell you?
Of course you can. The listeners will be waiting. It's like the, the good storytelling. You leave them always wanting more. There's a, have you heard of the 2 rules of comedy? First rule, always leave them wanting more. And that's it. Oh. So we've got them wanting more.
Very good.
The answer to that. So tell us the customer story of the impact. Yeah.
So this account person at IAL finally got me in the door at this manufacturing company, and car and truck. So I went there, and the first time I was there, it was about 20 leaders, and they were all gathered around, and half of them felt they'd been dragged there by this ear, by their boss, and not happy to be there at all. And after about, I really think it was about 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour, one of them starts frantically waving his hand, frantically. And I said, "Yes, what is it?" He said, "There's this woman sitting outside. Her name is Jeanette. She's been here for 50 years. And I've thanked her for what she does. She greets our customers from all over the world, and she finds them room and board and everything. But I never acknowledged her. And I need to go out and do that right now." And I said, "Well, let's just give it a little while. And then the other hands start, I need to acknowledge Jeanette also. I mean, all these 20 leaders were frantically waving their hands. So we chose Tom, the first one. I said, all right, go out there and you speak for everyone. And give her a copy of my book while you're at it. So anyway, he comes back about 10 minutes later, and he's really just about in tears. He said, she was so moved. She had no idea what a difference her career had meant to us. She had no idea. And I shared it on behalf of everyone. And then, of course, everyone after that went out and thanked her and appreciated her and acknowledged her. And she was about to retire. She could have left never knowing the difference she had made, like deep, deep difference. So anyway, that was, that had me back and back and back again. They kept bringing me back. And at one point, there was a woman in my class, one of the employees, who was herself a trainer, but she just wanted to see what this course was like. And at the end of the course, she said to me, Judy, I need to become certified to teach the Grateful Leadership course in our company. And I said, I'm really sorry. We don't have a certification program. She said, well, get one then.
Make one. So you went to your CEO and your CEO went, do it.
Well, I didn't even tell my CEO. She went around me.
Yep.
She got to the account manager and the CEO, and then I got my.
And it happens.
And she became certified, and she's been teaching ever since it was 5 years ago.
Wow.
And she loves it. She said she wishes she could teach at this company all over the world. She's still working on that, but right now she's in the US. And so
I guess it refers to a deep connection that every human, wants to contribute and wants to know that they matter. And so this is an opportunity for that to be highlighted. I want to see if we can give that closure of the cliffhanger we gave before in terms of what's the cost. If we're not doing this, what's the risks? What happens?
Well, I have seen what happens many times. I mean, people are lethargic, de-energized, they're not engaged. And there are all these employee engagement surveys, the Gallup organization has them, and very small percentages of people are engaged in their work. And they're clock watching, especially now with remote working, you can really get away with a lot. You could do whatever you want and make sure you do the minimum in your job. So the performance is not as good, but the fact that they're not profoundly connected to the mission and purpose of the company is a function of not being appreciated. Practically every time I speak publicly, somebody comes up to me afterwards and said, I left my job because I wasn't appreciated. And in fact, somebody at this manufacturing company, I do a little survey, when was the last time you were acknowledged, praised, or appreciated for what you contribute to the organization? And, usually it's within, I give them 4 choices: past week, month, year, or not at all. Well, only 3 times in my whole career have people said not at all. That's very rare. But the stories, those were heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But usually it's in the past month is a pretty good measure.
Okay.
But one time, I'll never forget, I was at a major software company presenting, and when I said week, month, year, and not at all, somebody raised her hand and she said, what about the past day? And I went, I laughed a little. I said, are you sure you want me to ask that? She said, yes. And there were people who've been flown in from all over the world to take my course and do some other things too. But I was there for a day. And when I asked them, every hand in that group went up within the past day. They had been acknowledged, appreciated, or
Wow.
praised. So that
What an
was,
amazing culture to build, and it will snowball and become addictive. And so we'll have, connection, we'll have engagement, and we'll have just deep care. We're human beings.
yeah.
I've got a couple of questions that I'd really like our listeners to benefit from. And the first one's a piece that you have in terms of these 5 C's of acknowledgement. And I wonder if you could just share perhaps all 5 or a couple of the most important ones to
Yeah,
help people really connect in deeply with your definition of acknowledgement and how they can do it to the maximum and best way.
okay, sure. And I have to say that the 5 C's are a tool that many people, like, they put them on their laptops, they shrink them down and paste them on their laptops, or they put them on their office walls because it's very handy. And I think I mentioned to you before that I'd be delighted to send any of your listeners a copy of the 5 C's.
We'll put a link on the podcast transcript page and things, so we'll get a link out. That'll be awesome, to these 5
Yeah,
C's. But
wonderful.
describe a couple of them for us. Yeah.
Okay, well, the first one is consciousness. You must be aware of the acknowledgments that are floating around in your brain. They may not come out of your mouth or on your keyboard, to end up in an acknowledgement, but you think these things all the time, like, oh my God, that was the best customer service I've ever received. Now, a lot of people won't bother to tell the server that it was the best customer service. Or we're thinking of a colleague, she's great at this. She's made such a difference on our team. I mean, I've had people come up to me and tell me something wonderful about somebody else. And I'll say to them, have you told her yourself this? No. I take them by the hand. In the good old days, I would take them by the hand and take them to that person and say, tell them what you just told me. Okay. So we have these things floating around in our brain that we just often don't deliver. So the second C is for choice. I choose to deliver the acknowledgments that are floating around in my brain. They're not going to just swim around like, a tropical fish in a tank, pretty to look at, but, not to give to somebody. I choose to give them whenever I can. And then, just this consciousness and the choice to do that starts making the opportunity greater. Then the third C is courage. And that one is critical. It really, really is critical, because for a lot of us, it takes courage to make ourselves vulnerable enough to let another person know how we really feel. I may get teary when I deliver the acknowledgement. They may get teary. I have to make myself vulnerable. I have to open my heart. And sometimes it's like, I'm not sure I want to take that risk. So I do a lot of work on the courage factor. And the work of Brené Brown, the social scientist, is amazing in terms of the power of vulnerability. Making oneself vulnerable is, the cornerstone of connection and joy and all these other.
It underpins learning.
Yeah.
Because we have to be vulnerable to know that we don't have the answer. It's the opposite to knowledge,
Ooh,
and
I like that.
The very state of accepting a journey of learning is to be vulnerable. And I find that just really fascinating as an area of things. But yeah, I interrupted to you.
No,
So
that's okay.
The next one.
No, but you're right. I mean, it is, and everything I'm talking about today is learning. I learn all the time that not to let that one go, because sometimes I'll say, well, they're too busy. I don't want to bother them. I mean, I can come up with excuses too, but I don't let myself get away with it.
Catch it in the moment.
Yeah, I learned that the cost is high, of letting it go, overlooking it. So the fourth C is communication. That's just how are you going to do it? You know, and there are a zillion ways to communicate your
like you said, old-fashioned writing a letter.
Oh my gosh.
You know how powerful that can be, because you can have time, you can think about it, and the person can then read that themselves. And that might take a different type of courage to write something than it does to do it face to face. Both can be super valuable. So yeah, I guess there's loads of different ways we can communicate it.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter whether it's Skype or skywriting, you know, they're out there. Those ways are out there. And in fact, I'm having a guest on one of our monthly webinars. We have a Center for Grateful Leadership. And every month we have a webinar, and our guest in an upcoming webinar is Doug Conant, who used to be the CEO of Campbell's Soup Company. And he is famous, world renowned for many things, but in my book, he's most famous for having written 30,000 letters, handwritten letters of appreciation to his employees. 30
Wonderful.
During his tenure at Campbell's Soup Company.
Love it.
So you're right. Handwritten letters are, I mean, you cannot throw away a handwritten letter.
In fact, I'm just going to grab one here from a friend of mine who's working on our documentary film. And out of the blue, in comes a little postcard, you know, with a thank you piece on it. You know, thank you for your friendship. I'm glad we're finally getting to collaborate together. Here's to many successful ventures. Just wonderful. Nice little piece. And somebody who I've, you know, aspired to be around for a long time. You know, he's a 15 times award-winning, Emmy award-winning director, wonderful guy. And he took the time to write me a little note. And that, like you say, it really touched me. It was heartfelt. And, you know, it was, and I keep it, you know, it's on a lovely, you know, it's an old letterpress printed piece, you know, it's very tactile. And
you couldn't throw that away if somebody paid you to.
Hit us, are we on the last C? So
yes, we're on the last C.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is commitment. And that takes a personal statement that I am going to do this from now on. I see the value, I see the cost of not doing it. So I'm committed in my work life, my personal life. I mean, I had somebody come and tell me, he said, thank you for transforming my relationship with my wife. I said, wow, that wasn't part of the program. He said, I know, but I learned it there for my work, and it applies to life as well, which is absolutely the truth.
I love it. So it was, for memory, it was conscious, choice, commitment. No. Courage. And then commitment. Communication, then commitment. Great. Okay. I need one of the little sticky pieces.
Yeah.
Conscious, choice, courage, communication, commitment.
Very good. Consciousness.
Consciousness.
Yeah.
I love it.
And the other broader commitment that's even more critical is from an organizational point of view. I have people who take my course or attend a webinar or see a program I've done on an IIL online conference, and they say, I want to bring this into my organization. And then for them to be able to motivate and inspire other leaders, and sometimes, you know, their team becomes so engaged and alive and lively that people are wondering, what did they drink for breakfast? You know, what potion did they take? And then they explain it was, you know, just opening their eyes to the importance of acknowledgement, gratitude. Yeah. So they can then get their organizations more engaged, a little bit at a time. But I always say it only takes one person to make that difference. And, you know, it's hard work.
It is. There's a coach called Lee Brower, and he's part of the Strategic Coach Network, and he has something. In fact, he was in The Secret. I don't know if you've ever watched The Secret.
Yeah,
He was the
yeah.
one with the rocks and the pebbles that he carries around. But he has something called Big, and every day he starts
Big?
BIG, and it's begin in gratitude. And it's
I love that.
wonderful way. And as soon as I heard that, I was in
writing this down.
Chicago at the time, and it was after a long day of workshops, and we were upstairs in a suite area with a few of the colleagues that had been on this workshop course at Strategic Coach, and he was there, and somebody else said, "Oh, you've got to meet Lee." And I met him, and we were talking, and they said, "Oh, this is the big guy." And I said, "Big?" And he said, "Yeah, beginning gratitude." And it resonated. It's some of those just little things. And whenever, we all have our, daily routines and practices, and then we call upon things at moments that either have become a habit, an atomic habit that we have, or they're in our toolkit for when we're facing a challenge, when we're in a certain level of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I want to link this a little bit to some of our work in adaptability. And one of the key areas...
Interrupt you for 1 second. Who was the person who said that?
Lee Brower. Lee Brower.
How do you spell Brower?
BROWER, I believe. We can put him in the links.
Okay. I love that. I hadn't heard that before.
He's got an amazing voice. He does a weekly video of just his thoughts, his philosophies, his various bits. Really wonderful, giving character. And
wow.
Very profound. So
amazing.
The link that I was that had connected in my mind around, essentially a lot of organizations for a long time have had challenge around soft skills and the value of them, how hard they are to teach, how hard they are to learn, and are they non-essential? And it's the airy fairy, as you mentioned, first book is a little bit out there versus no, these are the underpinnings of human society, of teamwork. And for us, one of the critical factors of adaptability to respond to change is hope. And I'm wondering what the link might be between gratitude and acknowledgement and an uplift in hope. Because without hope, we have no future. We have no desire, no reason to adapt, no reason to change. And so this could become the fuel that is topping up the tank of hope for people.
I love that.
It could be interesting. But I wanted to dive in just before we finish off about leadership. And you share 7 principles of grateful leadership. And I wonder if you could just pick 1 or 2 that you think people could focus on as a result of listening to you before they, undoubtedly seek you out, get your books, get on your webinars and your courses and things.
Thank you.
These principles, these 7 principles, which 1 or 2 do you think are the big ones that they could just take away?
Well, I also have a little poster of the 7 Principles of Acknowledgement.
We'll get that on the link as well. But coming from the creator, just pick a couple.
I'm just gonna, I would say number 5, truthful, heartfelt, and deserved acknowledgement always makes a difference, sometimes a profound one in a person's life and work. And the stories I've heard about this, acknowledgements, I have somebody who got certified to be a grateful leadership instructor in addition to the original person. And she tells a story about how when she was a waitress, she got into this long conversation with a young girl, and they just kept talking, and she kept drawing the girl out. For some reason, she felt that there was something going on with her. And she just, let her know that she was really interested and listened. And anyway, and the girl had ordered like a 6-course meal at the restaurant. Anyway, they had great conversation. They left. I mean, the young woman left. The next day, her mother comes back with her, and they're sitting and eating. And you know, the waitress was very happy to see her again. And when the young girl went to the ladies' room, the mother went over to Kathy, is her name, and she said, "My daughter's life. I didn't know this at the time, but she was ordering her last meal from you. That was her last meal." And she told me that, I'm going to get choked up as I say this, but she said that conversation
Saved her life.
Literally saved her life.
Wow. Wow.
Your
And
interest and
the
your
consciousness
caring.
to be aware, to ask questions, to be vulnerable and seek it in others. And it reminds me of another quote from Dan Sullivan about all progress starts with the truth. And so you're, you know, an acknowledgement that isn't grounded in truth and heartfelt truth isn't going to have the same impact.
It's going to have the opposite impact.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that, you know, sometimes people who hear about my work, not the ones who take a course or listen to something, read my book, but ones who think, oh, that's a good idea, I'll just put that to work, and they make it up, you know, and it's insincere, it's inauthentic, and people smell that a mile away, and it's like, it's not an acknowledgement, it's a manipulation.
Yes.
Get them to work harder, and you know, forget
so
about.
If we, finishing on this, you know, point here in terms of it's a powerful tool, but used in the right way, it can have incredible benefits. And seek truth from it, the authenticity, and just taking a moment to pause and have time to be able to do it and use this well. And it's in all of us. Like you said, we've got these tropical fish in our minds running around that we need to just choose to do something with. So if I can encourage people to do something today, do something now, where you find somebody that you can share a heartfelt acknowledgement of gratitude of how they have either affected you or someone else. For me, I'm going to do that straight away. My wife is currently out walking our dogs this evening. And when she comes back, I'll have had the time to really deeply think what I'm grateful for. And I'm excited to do that. So thank you, Judy. It's been a real learning for me. And I'm sure our listeners as well. I'm very grateful for your time. And
can I just say two things in
closing? Of course you can. Yeah.
Maybe a quick three. One, I want to leave you and your listeners with this thought. There is never an expiration date on an acknowledgement. And I've had people in my courses go back to a fifth grade teacher who changed their lives and find them, you know, because, and I always say IAL runs this little detective agency. We can help you find, if you want to find somebody, you don't know how to do it, come to me. That's one thing. And then you left your listeners with this great thought about hope, connecting this to hope. And I love that. I'm very moved by that, because these are dark times. These are really, really dark and frightening times. And when we can focus on gratitude and appreciation and acknowledge somebody, create these little bursts of light in the darkness, that's what they are.
Yeah.
Now more than ever, you know, that's,
there's isolation, there's anxiety, and there's disconnection.
yeah,
without us choosing to be disconnected. We've, you know, for many countries, in lots of places, we're forced to be disconnected.
Yes.
But there's a difference between social distancing and physical distancing. We don't have to be socially distant. Physically distant, yes, but socially distant, no. So taking this opportunity, like you say, to send out these little lightning bolts of hope, and it will be a ripple effect. And I am confident that the world and humanity is thanking you for sharing this for many people to bring it into their lives. Is a wonderful
into the lives
gift.
of others.
Yeah.
More importantly.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
And
that's been great. And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way of them getting in touch with you? Is it LinkedIn? Is it through the IIL? Where's the best way, Judy?
oh, thank you for asking that. I was going to sneak that in as my third point if you didn't
I
ask.
got you. I got you covered.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, everyone should join the Center for Grateful Leadership. Go to www.gratefulleadership, that's 2Ls.com, and just join. It takes 30 seconds to join, and then it's free, and monthly webinars, and I do a weekly podcast, and they should do that. And then my email address, I love direct communications, is Judy, Judy, Umlas, U-M as in Mary, L as in Larry, A Apple, S Sam, Umlas, at IIL.com. 2
Perfect.
1 L.
Perfect. That's very kind of you to offer out your personal email. And I'm excited to hear the stories of people that may have listened to this and it's encouraged them to do something and given them the courage to do so. So thank you. And I look forward to our relationship growing as well, Judy.
Yes, and I thank you for a beautiful interview. Really, you made it just like a conversation, and it was absolutely wonderful, and hopefully difference making.
We hope so. Thank you, Judy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Russ.
Do you have the level of adaptability to survive and thrive the rapid changes ahead? Has your resilience got more comeback than a yo-yo? Do you have the ability to unlearn in order to reskill, upskill and break through? Find out today and uncover your adaptability profile and score, your AQ. Visit AQai.io to gain your personalized report across 15 scientifically validated dimensions of adaptability. For a limited time, enter code PODCAST65 for a complimentary AQME assessment. AQai, transforming the way people, teams, and organizations navigate change. Thank you for listening to this episode of Decoding AQ. Please make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast directory, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Please do leave a review and be sure to tune in next time for more insights from our amazing guests.